We got an amazing email from Edgar, and
Okay.
Edgar's a real talker. He wrote in and he said, I've been holding on to this. He said, I've been sort of, tweaking this and working on this. And he said, I'd love this to be considered for the flamethrower presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. That's a tradition of ours every Friday. Give you a chance to blow off some steam and say whatever's pissing you off, basically. He goes, but I think it might be too long. And I don't feel like it's a flamethrower. I feel like it's like a great feature interview on the show. And we try to get into our mailbag at least a few times a week because we get a lot of emails and we appreciate those of you that take the time to talk at RyanJesperson.com. So Edgar's subject line, Alberta is a meat grinder. And it obviously caught our attention. He says, there's nothing like the way Albertans identify with beef. He says, who hasn't heard somebody talk about how they brought a cooler full of AAA Angus Alberta steak to a camp or out on a trip? He says, it's a point of real pride for us as much as it's a place of comfort. It's something that a majority of us probably share in Alberta. Edgar says there's something else that we have in common too. Much like the cattle that dot our prairies, Albertans are fattened up, put out to pasture, and eventually put through the meat grinder that is this province. And I thought that this worked, by the way, reading this after talking about high utility prices and agriculture and renewables. And back to Edgar's words, he says, now, whether it's the perilous slow motion collapse of Alberta's healthcare system, chewing through the ever decreasing pool of talented healthcare workers, or the near factory farm level condition of our classrooms, where students are stuffed into every possible crevice that can fit a chair, if there is one to spare at all, Alberta has become a meat grinder that chews up our best and brightest. Now, this isn't the case, he says, for our doctors or teachers either. Maybe you're working in our cities where the province is twice as likely to bring out the stick as they are the carrot of municipal funding. Maybe you're working in our communities watching in terror as our unhoused neighbors are forced to relive trauma upon trauma, rebuilding their lives every day as Alberta grinds up their possessions. He's talking about, of course, taking these camps, these encampments apart, grinds up their possessions, their rights, and their dignity. Edgar says, maybe you're one of the people in our 2S LGBTQIA plus communities who made their homes across this province, who hear the gears twisting over their friends and families east and are terrified of something similar happening in Alberta, as in New Brunswick and Saskatchewan. Maybe you're someone who saw the protests that happened a few months ago, watching as people marched against your existence and the existence of kids like you. The grinder doesn't discriminate. Or maybe it does. Alberta is a meat grinder, says Edgar. It doesn't ask you what you want. It tells you what you want. It gaslights you, telling you that the numbers you have are flat out wrong, whether it's the publicly available data on shelter capacity or healthcare wait times or emissions or the tracking of diseases like COVID and RSV. Even the truth fed through the grinder, twisted, mangled until it's suitable for digestion. There will be no disagreeing with the meat grinder. This isn't up for debate, because if you do, you'll be chewed up. That's the fate of Alberta beef, after all, until we collectively, as a province, agree to stand up to those who are turning the handle. We will never escape the grinder.